So if you have takeover. I keep saying takeover. At least I didn't say takedown. It's coming from like K-pop demon hunters, you know? Hi, I'm Jenné Claiborne. I'm in the NYT Cooking studio kitchen, and we are making my vegan dirty rice. Dirty rice is a classic Creole dish that I grew up eating all the time. It's one of my favorite things. It's made with pre-cooked rice and usually some sort of ground meat in it. I grew up not eating red meat, so my mom always made it with ground turkey. And now that I'm vegan, I make it with a vegan ground meat along with mushrooms to make it super savory and umami rich and absolutely delicious. But as you'll see in this recipe, it has all the classic ingredients of a Creole dish. We have a little bit of chopping and mincing to do, but it's all coming together in one pot, which will make it all worth it. We're gonna start with the Holy Trinity. If you don't know, it's that classic combination in Creole and Cajun cooking of onions, green pepper, and celery. So I'm gonna start by dicing up my onion now. You don't have to be perfect. If you need to save time by prepping the ingredients in the food processor, you'll find that it's kind of finely chopped, right? But it'll still work, because that's what I do at home. I'm lazy these days. I'm like, put it in the food processor. For this recipe, and really any recipe, it's so important to have everything prepped before you turn the stove on. It'll make your life so much easier, and you're far less likely to burn your food. I'm not a big green bell pepper person, but it is a necessity in any of these Creole dishes. I find that it works. You know, they're not as sweet as red bell peppers are, but they have a nice savory acidity. They're delicious. So when I started all of this stuff, like when I was in college, it was actually my ex-husband's idea. He was my boyfriend at the time. And he said, Jenné, you should do a cooking show. And it was terrible. Oh my gosh. The first episodes are so bad, but you gotta start somewhere. Because of all the hobbies that I've ever had, vegan eating, vegan living, and sharing that with people is my biggest passion. It became just like part of my mission and part of my goal to help other people discover this way of eating, because I think it's amazing. I've been eating this way for almost 15 years now, but I do think it can be daunting and difficult for people to adopt a plant-based diet. So it's my mission to help people and like show them that it can be sustainable and attainable. And you know, your classic traditional cultural foods can still be made vegan. That's my main goal with all this stuff. Mushrooms are so good. They give such a great savory, umami-rich flavor. You can really use any type of mushroom, but you don't need to get anything fancy. But what I like to do in this recipe, because I don't want big chunks of mushrooms floating around, I kind of shred them in a way. So I'll slice them, and then I'll dice them, and then I mince them. And I wish I could think of something else to rhyme with that, but I can't. And I just chop, 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 chop until I have finely minced mushrooms. But these are gonna cook down even more, and they're gonna release an amazing like liquid into our dirty rice. I like to do this in a nice big cast iron skillet. Oil is hot. We can add our Holy Trinity. I like to add a pinch of salt too with this step, just so everything is well seasoned in the end. I'm funny at home, like I make the same recipes. I have these spelt pancakes. I make them every weekend, and it's my recipe, I wrote it. I can never remember the recipe. I have to get it out and look at it every time. It's got like 4 ingredients. I'm like, what is it again? I have a decent memory for some things, but not for recipes. Once these have cooked down, your onions start to turn translucent. You can add our garlic and our scallions, some more aromatics. We're gonna saute this for another 3 minutes until the onions are a little softer and that garlic is very fragrant. We're looking for these to release a lot of liquid. And they're gonna cook down, they're gonna get darker. They're basically cooking in their own liquid, so they're not necessarily gonna get like crispy brown or anything like that, just reducing. It'll take about 5 to 8 minutes for these to be ready for us to move on to our next step. But you'll know they're done when they're darker and they've released their liquid and they've reduced a lot in size. Time for me to move on. I'm gonna add a bay leaf, the vegan meat. I'm using my spatula just to break it up so I can cook through. Also, maintain that meaty texture. I usually like to use mushrooms, lentils, walnuts, things like that to replicate meat. However, the vegan meat does a good job of replacing that fatty mouthfeel that you would get from an animal product. This is some dried thyme, porcini mushroom powder, one of my favorite ingredients of all time because it gives it a big flavor boost of just umami richness. I love this one, especially when I'm making anything really, really meaty. Choose whichever spice level you'd like. You can do mild or super spicy. You can make your own at home. I have a recipe for Creole seasoning. You can have it with or without salt, whatever floats your boat. I'm gonna stir it just a little. Not only will that help it to get its meaty texture, but also cook through. I think it's ready, y'all. It's nice and brown. It's looking very meaty. And we're going to add the rice. So this is pre-cooked rice. We are adding pre-cooked because the other things have cooked. This is a great recipe to use leftover rice. Add it straight to our pan and some soy sauce. You will find that soy sauce is one of my most frequently used ingredients. I use soy sauce a lot more than I do salt because it has so much more flavor than just salt does. And give it a stir. And look at it looking so dirty. It's looking so dirty. Yes, dirty rice. Dirty and delicious. One pot dirty rice. This is it. I'm ready to eat. Let's give it a try. It totally reminds me of the dirty rice of my childhood, but it's better. The spice with the Tabasco just balances out all of the flavors. The mushrooms, if you've been trying to eat more mushrooms, this is a great recipe. They're just perfect and small and delightful in every little bite. This right here, y'all, absolutely delicious. You can find this recipe on New York Times Cooking and also in my cookbook, Vegan Vibes. I hope you'll try it.